So Sophia creates basically the devil. And the devil, aka Yaldabaoth, he's got a ton of names, by the way. Yaldabaoth, Samael, Saklas, Nibro, Arariel, or Arariel, I believe. What else? He's got a lot of names. Guy's got a ton of names, and they're not very good names. Samael means blind god. Saklas means foolish god. Nibro means rebel. So he's the blind, foolish rebel, essentially. The blind, foolish rebel, this being. And this being thinks it's the only god in existence because Sophia's like, oh shit, this thing's scary. I'm gonna throw it into the void. And she throws it into the void. And so Yaldabaoth looks around and goes, hey, I'm the only one here. I must be God. And he goes, I am God and there is no other. And then Yaldabaoth creates the material world and the archons. The archons are, so essentially like how the one begins to think about itself and generate aspects of itself. Yaldabaoth kind of does that, but in a dark way, in an inverted way. Yaldabaoth begins to, from itself, produce beings of darkness. So everything Yaldabaoth does is like an imitation of the higher realms. So Yaldabaoth generates from itself beings of darkness called archons, which is the Greek word for ruler. They're the rulers. He's the chief archon. He generates 12 of them, each one for the sign of the zodiac, assigns 7 of them to the 7 classical planets, and 5 of them to the bottom of the abyss, which is the material world associated with the 4 elements and ether, making 5. So you have 12, zodiac, 7, planets, 5, the elements. Long story short, what the Gnostics are trying to say, you don't have to believe in astrology or any of that. What the Gnostics are trying to say is that the material world is governed by laws that trap you. Whether it's matter or cosmic forces or whatever, these archonic forces of ignorance, okay? And in the Neogenian system, which is the system I promote, our goal is to overthrow all these archonic systems, whether these archonic systems take the form of oppressive patriarchal systems, oppressive economic systems, religion, like brainwashing mainstream religion, or even psychological archons like addiction, anger, wrath, etc. Okay? They're everything that keep us from achieving our true self, right? So anyways, Earth is, so he creates, by the way, he creates 7 heavens of chaos, and then Earth is the bottom of the abyss. So according to Gnostic cosmology, the 7 heavens are actually the 7 layers of hell, and Earth is the bottom of the abyss. So, Christians who are trying to get to heaven, Gnostics would be like, that's just hell on another level. You're just upgrading heaven to like the bronze package or something, or hell, the bronze package. It's all hell. So the Gnostics see, and Earth is literally the bottom of the abyss. And so here's the idea. Sophia is a complicated character because in Gnosticism, she's looked at as a savior figure. Why is she looked at as a savior figure? Because she is trying to recover the sparks of light. Because Yaldabaoth traps light in matter, and that's us, right? We are the one that has become trapped in matter, according to Gnosticism. So we have been trapped in darkness. We are the one that's been trapped in matter. Sophia is like, oh shit, I want to help them remember what they are so they can free themselves from matter, achieve gnosis, which means knowledge of what they really are, and return to the pleroma. Now, real quick aside, I'll just throw it in there. I like the version with Achamat because the version with Achamat is really cool because the Achamat is Sophia's dark side, right? And so Achamat is trapped in this liminal realm known as like the 8th realm. And Achamat, like her tears become the rain, her smile becomes the sun. Like the material world is a manifestation of her power. And Yaldabaoth is kind of like an instrument of her power. Yaldabaoth still doesn't know she exists. But the cool thing is in that version, we are all parts of Sophia's light that fell. And so Achamat cannot be restored to the pleroma until every single soul of divine light has ascended to the pleroma as well. So it's all wrapped together. It's all tied together because everything is the one just thinking about itself in different ways, and parts of the one has become trapped in matter. And so we're here to liberate ourselves and be released from matter. So Jesus Christ is looked at as an emissary of Sophia. Sometimes Christ is even considered like an avatar of Sophia, who is here to, whether you want to think of Christ, Jesus as an avatar of Sophia or a messenger of Sophia or whatever, it doesn't matter. Jesus is linked to Sophia. And Jesus' mission is to get people to look within and realize that we are all sons of the living Father or children of the living Father, and to achieve gnosis, knowledge of what we are, and return to the divine realms. So it's interesting because in Gnosticism, Sophia is looked at as a savior figure. However, if you take Gnosticism at face value, she's kind of the one that fucked everything up, right? And now don't get me wrong, the Gnostics, didn't really say anything too negative about Sophia. They had a lot of great things to say about Sophia, but they still considered like her error, her deficiency, her error. So it's still kind of because in traditional Christianity, who's the one that gets blamed? Eve, the woman who eats from knowledge. And now in Gnosticism, Eve is a hero, another part of Sophia who brings knowledge to humanity, who listens to Jesus. They're all aspects of each other. But in traditional Christianity, it's like, oh, the woman wrecked everything, right? There's that misogynistic view, which led to a lot of problems and a lot of misogyny in the church that's still there to this day, which is why, in Catholicism, women can't teach, etc. But in Gnosticism, Eve is a hero because she eats from the tree of knowledge and helps us wake up. So, but even though they have a lot of great things to say about Sophia and Gnosticism, it still has a bit of that flavor, doesn't it? That like, oh, it's the woman that fucked everything up. She wanted to do something on her own without her masculine counterpart. It's got that, they didn't say it like that, but if you think about it logically, and that's a question I get in the comments all the time. Like, why did Sophia do that? And like, didn't she fuck everything up? Yeah, if you take Gnosticism at face value, that's what it looks like. Again, important to remember that masculine and feminine doesn't literally mean like penis and vagina or even our gender norms today, but still, it's presented in a way that one could come to certain conclusions that is, still like, oh, it's all the feminine fucked everything up. So let's talk about this and how this relates to Earth being hell and all this. So the Gnostics looked at Earth being hell. And it's like, well, what the hell, Sophia? You generated this evil being who created hell. Now we're trapped in hell and we're trying to get out. And so Sophia's good because she's trying to help us get out, but also she started this whole thing in the first place. Okay, so here's where we have to understand how reality actually works. So if you think about it, think about Gnosticism. Because Gnosticism says eventually we will all be liberated and return to the realm of divine light. Okay, that's what Gnosticism says. At the end of time, we will all be liberated. We will all achieve gnosis, and we will turn to the realm of divine light, and everything will be restored. Okay, but think about that for a minute. All right, it's the end of time. We're all, in the realm of divine light. Then what? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna? So the idea here is that there is no, it's just happily ever after forever? That would be a linear infinity, which is the wrong type of infinity. We need a cyclical reality, infinity, for everything to cohere logically and rationally. So here's the key to understand, is that in the Neo-Genian interpretation of reality, at the end of time, we will all be restored, yes, to a singularity of light. But then the process will occur again with another Big Bang and another journey throughout space and time, and then another collapse into a singularity of light. And it happens again and 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 again. And a lot of systems like the Stoics and certain aspects of Hinduism have understood this. So at face value, this might sound like a bad thing, but let me explain why it's not actually. So if you are in a realm of perfect light, that might be chill for a while, but it would eventually turn into hell. Because if you're in a realm with perfect balance, total balance, nothing interesting ever happens. Ever. You would go mad. You would be so fucking bored because things are interesting because of storylines, of drama. If you read a book where there was no conflict, no hero trying to struggle to understand themselves or a villain to overcome or whatever, the book was nothing at all except different characters being like, oh, you look lovely today. Oh, so do you. That would be no one would want to read that book. It'd be a stupid book. It'd be a horrible book. So the idea here is that Earth is not actually hell. Earth is simply where the story unfolds. It's where we as light can express itself in material forms. It's like logging into a video game. Now, it feels like hell because the programmers, or like the rulers, right, of this world, those under the thumb of the archons, the billionaire elite, religious entities, etc., keep us enslaved and create hellish conditions. But it doesn't have to be that way. So imagine if every book you ever read was awful. Like you've never read a good book in your life. There's every book, oh my God, this is a horrible book, this is a horrible book, this is a horrible book, this is a horrible book. You would probably come to the conclusion that books are bad. Books are horrible. If every book you ever read is horrible, you're just like, books are horrible. People tend to think Earth is hell because the only experience they have on Earth is horrible. But a material universe does not have to be horrible. The material universe is like a blank book, and you can write the story any way you want. Right now, it's a shitty story because we have shitty authors, which are the rulers of this world. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's why the goal is to make this realm better so that we can have interesting, beautiful experiences in this realm while being connected to the realms of light and be able to experience the realms of light and be able to experience this realm as well. Think of it like a video game, all right? If you are in a video game, or if you believed that you were in a video game and the video game was real, that would be terrifying. Like, oh my God, there's dragons and trolls and monsters and I'm gonna die, holy shit. You would be traumatized if you thought the game was real. But if you were able to program a great game and understand that the game is just an expression, it has a completely different connotation to it. And so it's like being able to log into a video game and log out. You can experience the game world and you can experience the real world. You can experience the realm of divine light. You can experience the material world, which is the world where we can experience each other in bodies and separation. And it is interesting to experience each other in physical form rather than just like complexes of frequency. I'm sure it's beautiful to experience each other as complexes of frequency, but it's also interesting to experience each other in material localized forms in space and time. So, however, at the end of time, everything will collapse again into a singularity of light, where everything is in perfect balance. Now, if that were to be the case for eternity, that would become hell because nothing interesting would ever happen. So, Sophia, by acting out of alignment, actually saves us from a state of total banality, total boredom, total nothingness, locked into an eternal prison in our own minds. So Sophia actually saves us from hell. Now, how does she do this? By acting out of balance. here, this is how this relates to the actual metaphysics of the system. And by the way, that's, I'm giving you the Neogenian interpretation. The Gnostics didn't say anything about reality being cyclical or Sophia saving us. The Gnostics didn't say Sophia saved it. They saw her as fucking up, making a mistake, and now we have to fix her fuck up. That's how the Gnostics look at it. But they looked at her in a positive way. They didn't look at her too negatively. They had a ton of respect for Sophia. But I'm just saying, what I'm explaining to you now is the Neogenian interpretation. I'm Neogenian. And I often use Gnosticism to explain these concepts. But I am not a Gnostic in the traditional sense. I'm a Neogenian. And so reality is this cyclical process. In terms of Gnosticism, Sophia acts out of balance. Now, how this links up to the metaphysics is this. Remember how we said everything is light? Everything are these circles, mathematical circles. Everything is waves. So these sinusoidal waves, here's the interesting thing. When these sinusoidal waves are in perfect alignment, no variation in amplitude, and everything in phase, right? Imagine aligning waves as perfectly as you possibly could. If you do that, you simply have light, but it doesn't project anything. Now, let me explain. If you are to vary the frequencies by varying the amplitude and shifting things so they're out of phase, so that things are no longer in balance, guess what you get? You get something known as an interference pattern. Waves are interfering with each other. And what happens when you have light illuminated through an interference pattern is you get a hologram. You get a hologram. So, reality is a holographic expression of a divine mind of light. And when that divine mind of light has all of its waveforms in perfect alignment, perfect phase, with no variation in amplitude, there is no holographic projection. But as soon as you introduce imbalance by shifting the phase and varying the amplitude, you get an interference pattern which gives rise to which can give rise to a hologram. Can be. You want to structure it in the right way, but it can. So think of it like, let me put it in terms of a hologram. So there are three main components to a hologram. There's the source beam, which is a laser. Okay? You have the source beam, which is a laser. Then you have a holographic film, which is just like, think about it like a photographic film. If you look at photographic film, you see a picture of something. You see a 2D image of something. If you were to look at a holographic film, it would look like noise, like static. Wouldn't look like a picture. So what is that? It's an interference pattern. And as soon as you shine the laser on the holographic film, that interference pattern tells the light how to structure itself such that it produces an image, a picture. A 3D picture, not a 2D picture, but a three-dimensional picture. Now, our reality is, of course, is more complicated than that because it has to do with a hologram, like a holographic film, simply tells light how to structure itself in such a way that you perceive a three-dimensional image, but it's not solid, right? Like you can't touch it. It's not like a solid thing, but our world is solid. And that is because there's another element in this which has to do with light slowing down, slowing below the speed of light. And according to David Bohm, a famous physicist and protege of Einstein, he believed that when light slows, it generates matter, or the illusion of matter. He said that you can think of matter as frozen light. So matter is essentially frozen light. So essentially, once you add all these components together, light structuring itself into a certain way according to interference pattern and slowing itself down, you get a material world. So think of it like the source. You can also think of it in terms of a video game. Think of the source as like a programming code, right? Like that's the code. And then you can arrange the code. Like if you have code that's like super boring, it's just like, oh, this is really nice, perfectly symmetrical code. Well, it might not generate anything. But if you arrange the code in a certain way, you can generate a video game world. And so you can exist as like experiencing the code or experiencing a video game. But they're two very different ways of experiencing something. Whether you experience the code or experience the video game, but they're still related. Just like the material world and the physical world, or the material world and the immaterial, mental, divine light, the metaphysical aspect to reality. So to think that Earth is hell would be kind of like thinking video games are hell. If you thought that a video game was real and you were really in it and you only played awful video games, right? Let's say Silent Hill, okay? You're stuck in the video game Silent Hill and you think that it's real. You're going to be like, oh my God, I hate video games, even though you wouldn't know what a video game is, but you'd be like, I hate this place. I never want to come here again. It's hell. It's awful. I want to get out. That's why people think that Earth is hell, because we're living in like, a Silent Hill akin to we're living in a pretty shitty world. But it doesn't have to be. You can make great games, and we can make a great game here in the game of life. And Sophia, what Sophia represents in the Neogenian system, partly is the aspect of creation in the form of an interference pattern of light. See, the Gnostics said that Sophia, they called it Sophia's defect or deficiency because it was out of balance. But the so-called defect is actually what gives rise to the interference pattern, which allows there to be a material world for us to exist in and have experiences together so that we're not locked into this banal realm of light forever. The Gnostics even called the realm of perfect light this Sige, which means the silence. Because in utter, imagine utter perfection would just be silence. Or you can imagine a single tone. It's super boring. But as soon as you put some variation, change the frequency, shift the phase, you get a melody. That can be a really bad melody. But if you start aligning everything properly, you can begin to create beautiful music. So Sophia's voice is what saves us from what would be the damnation of the eternal silence. Now, this isn't to say the realm of light is bad. No, it's awesome. But the material world isn't bad either. It's an expression of the light. If we were stuck in the realm of light forever with nothing to do, that would be hell. So it's about our role here as creators. And Sophia truly, so a lot of people are like, oh, well, Sophia's name is wisdom, but it didn't seem like a very wise thing to do, to act out of harmony of the one. It was the wisest thing that you could possibly do in that situation, because we would be locked into hell if we didn't. We would be locked into the damnation of the eternal silence. But in Sophia's wisdom, she used her voice of creation to break the silence and create the symphony of what we experience as the material world. And it's up to us to build a beautiful song by arranging the pattern of this reality and this world into something that's beneficial for all, which in the Neogenian system is known as a teleocracy, a planetary civilization, a teleocracy, which is basically a purposeful society where the purpose is to maximize the quality of life for everyone, for every individual and the collective. That's how we create a harmonious world in the material world that we can experience and grow in together. So Sophia, in the Gnostic interpretation, she fucked up, but in the Neogenian interpretation, she did not. She represents the aspect of creation. She represents the moment that we can have the hologram of the world actually generates something rather than being, excuse me, nothing. So if you think of those three components again, like there's the source, and then there's the holographic film, and then there's the when you shine the light, the source light onto the holographic film, you get the hologram. So that's the source is like the divine mind of light in perfect harmony. The interference pattern is kind of like the realm of the eons, and then the hologram is like the material world. So when the eons are in balance, you don't get an interference pattern. But when they're out of balance, you do get an interference pattern, which is not necessarily a bad thing. If you're playing a song and you're like, oh, this is a bad song because some of the notes are different than the other notes. It's like, well, wait, that's why that's the point of the song, for there to be difference. You can have difference is what makes life interesting. Which is why, the idea of like sexism and racism and homophobia and all that is such utter bullshit. Difference is what makes this place interesting. Imagine if we're all the same, how fucking boring it would be. Be hell, be awful. But people are so terrified of anything that's not like their particular expression at this place, arbitrary space. Fools, idiots. Anyway, one other quick thing that I want to throw in there because I think it's important. So in Gnosticism, there's basically the one, and then we are all sparks of the one, and then we kind of like reunite at the end. I just want to make clear that in the Neo-Genian interpretation, it is a bit different than that. In the Neo-Genian interpretation, instead of there just being one mind, every one of us is a one, a soul. And together we form a network. And that network is a single mind. But it is the result of us as a network. It doesn't exist independently from us. It is not higher than us. It is what we are. Now, no single mind can be above it, of course. But it is what we are, expressing ourselves as multiplicity. So here, I showed you before the symbol of the flower of life. And I told you that, oh, this, each circle's like, imagine each circle as being frequencies, and this is like a collection of frequencies. So you could think of this, but what this actually is a soul. Okay, it's a soul, a structure of vibratory patterns. It is a soul. Now, the network of souls would be this. Okay, where each circle is its own flower of life. I call this the garden of life or the garden of light. So think of us as like a flower in the garden of light, which makes up this singular pattern. But this pattern only exists because of us, and it is what we are. And so you can think of it that way. If you think of each of us as like, an eternal flower, and then the collective consciousness that we form is like the garden. The garden just exists because, if you removed all the flowers and all the plants from the garden wouldn't exist anymore. The garden is the aggregate collection of the plant life. And so what we in the Neo-Genian system call the absolute is the collective network of each of us as an individual eternal soul, which we call a zeta. So I just wanted to make that clear. In the Neo-Genian interpretation, it's not like there's just one, and then we all kind of get sucked into it and dissolve into like an ocean. No, rather each and every one of us is a one, a zeta, an eternal soul, but we exist within a network. That's why reality is one and many. It is one network mind expressed as many individualized, particularized minds. It is a universal that particularizes itself. And to go even further here, just to give you a visual to grasp this, if we look at this image, we can even get a better idea. So imagine this is your body, okay? This is you. And you can imagine this is your body and also like your egoic identity. This, though, is what you really are. You are a zeta. You are a soul that is linking to this body like a player logging into a video game. So you are a zeta, you are a soul, you are a collection of frequency patterns, a collection of light forms that is interfacing with a body to experience a localized domain. However, on top of that, you are also one node inside this network where each circle is its own. I of course drew this outside of this, but that's just for illustrations purposes. This cannot exist outside of this. Everything is always interconnected. So it's not like one of these can pop out and leave. They're all interconnected. I just have it in like this so that I can actually point to it. Okay. So you and us, we are all this. All right. We are the absolute. You, me, all of us together are this, expressing ourselves in individualized form, individualized units that then interact with each other through bodies, which is a holographic projection of light, in what we perceive as the material realm as a way of interacting with each other in a localized domain. Again, really quick, remember, this is a simplified way of understanding it. I'm not saying that reality is literally structured exactly like the flower of life. It is a simplistic model that's very useful and pretty close in terms of frequencies and circles and waves, etc. But the actuality of it is, of course, much more complex. But the symbol, it's a good symbol for it. It's a sign. It's a symbol. It's not the actual thing. The actual thing is much more complex. But it can give you an idea to start to grasp this. So let me see if check my notes here. My notes. Where are my notes? Oh, I turned them off. Why did I do that? Let's see. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything here. Yeah. Okay. So the main thing to understand here, Earth isn't actually hell. It just seems like it. But we can change that. We can transform it. It's hellish, but not by definition, by its nature, hell. We can transform it. We live in a cyclical reality where we go through these cycles of the generation of the material world, having this interesting story that unfolds, and then eventually collapsing once again into a singularity of light. And this happens again. And each time it's a new story. It's not like we're locked into the same, it's not like Groundhog Day. It likely is not Groundhog Day. It is much more likely that each instance is a unique instance. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but simplistically speaking, it's likely a unique instance each time. So it wouldn't be like, oh, I have to read the same book over and over and over and over. It's like, oh, I read a book and now I'm going to start a new book with a different story and whatnot. So reality exists in this cyclical fashion, which it must. A linear reality, is not logically coherent. A cyclical reality is logically, rationally, mathematically coherent. Linearity is not. So we live in this cyclical pattern, and we go from matter to light, matter to light. Light is always in the background, just like the programming code is always in the background. But Sophia, in the Neogenian interpretation, symbolically represents shifting the waveforms of the source such that it generates the holographic projection that we call the material world. In the Neogenian system, we call it the holos. So there was a lot to digest in this. I hope that you were able to understand. If not, let me know in the comments. If so, let me know in the comments. It's always helpful for me to understand what it is that's difficult, what's easy, or if you want more detail or less detail, because we could bring in mathematics all day long, but people usually don't really like math. But let me know what you think in the comments. And the important thing to remember here is that under the Neogenian interpretation, Sophia was wise and really lived up to her name as wisdom in being the utterance of her voice that broke the silence and gave rise to the material realm. Yes, we have to go through some shitty parts, which is like the tooth and nail of evolution and natural selection and survival of the fittest. That's awful. That's bloody. That's horrible. And then, the earth trying to fix itself but it's like, that's how it works. Imagine you pick up a guitar and you try and play, a super advanced song. First time you pick up a guitar and try and play a song, it's going to sound like shit, right? And you work for a week, you probably still sound like shit. You work for 2 weeks, you probably still sound like shit. You work for a month, and hey, you sound like shit, but you should a little better, a little less like shit. And then you play and play and play and play and play. You get better and better and better until like, oh my God, this is a great song. But at first, the first time you pick that up, it's like, oh my God, this is awful. The first couple weeks, the first couple months, oh my God, this is awful. We are right now as divine minds in the learning how to play the guitar phase of existence. Evolution, tooth and nail, survival of the fittest was like picking it up for the first time. And it sounded just awful. But it's making sound, but it sounds awful. Gaining self-awareness, forming societies and systems and cultures and philosophy and math, and it sound a little better. But all fucking oligarchs and billionaires and religion and genocide and murder and rape and sexism and homophobia, it's still not the best melody. But we continue to refine it. Eventually, it's going to be beautiful music. And that's the point. Eventually, it's going to be beautiful music. We just have to practice. And that's why in the Neogenian system, we're about creating a new world right here and right now, because we're conducting that symphony, aligning the orchestral components so that it produces a harmonious melody. That's teleocracy, a planetary civilization. That's what we are here to do. And overthrow the archonic forces that keep us from actualizing that harmonious melody. And then the source would just be like a pure tone. Be it's boring. Be super boring. So what do? You start to play the song. At first I was like, oh, that's awful. It's not boring anymore, but oh, it's awful. But then it gets better and better and better. It's just like, wow, this is beautiful. This is amazing. And everything's right. That's what we're working for. Pythagoras believed this, by the way. So Pythagoras said all is number, and number rules the universe. But he also talked about the music of the spheres. So he believed that reality was a mathematical reality, but also a musical reality. Reality is music, math and music, because math is music. The different scales, you can think of the energy quantization of quantum mechanics. Anyway, let's create a better song, a beautiful symphony, and it no longer will be hell. It will be a brilliant reality where we are finally able to express the divine light inside of ourselves and experience it in each other and build the kingdom of heaven right here and right now. That's why Jesus said, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Remember, repent in Greek was originally metanoia, which means change your mind. And he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And at hand means right here. So Jesus said, change your mind. The kingdom of heaven is inside you right now, just waiting for you. And then we actualize it and express it in this world.